Just got finished at CES. You would not believe who I had dinner with. Many of my favorite AI YouTubers. There's the photo evidence to prove it right there on my community tab. Matt Wolf, Matthew Berman, Saj from Skill Leap AI, and Kevin from Fidia, which I was watching even back when it was Obscurious, so look, I'm an OG fan. And let me tell you, there was so much craziness going on at CES this year. The Consumer Electronics Show is like half artificial intelligence plugged into gadgets. Robots, self-driving cars, AI-powered drones, AI-powered people. Look at this thing. This is an underwater bulldozer. It's a submarine and it's a bulldozer and it's using AI. I didn't even know the world needed an underwater bulldozer. What are you gonna do? Make a big hole in the bottom of the ocean? All right, so this is the Omnia. It is a 360-degree AI-powered body scanning health mirror. Scans your heart, your weight, your metabolic health. These are the Hollanday glasses. They are smart glasses with a 3.5-inch display. And of course, an AI agent, probably a ChatGPT wrapper, but it's right there in your ear and it's got a camera looking forward in the same way your eyes are.
A phone, so I guess that's for making calls. AI assistant. Translation?
Great, how are you? That's so cool.
A lot of people were talking about this supercar. I mean, it does have self-driving in it, so there it is driving by itself, but also self-jumping. It detects that hole in the ground and just hops over it. I mean, that's crazy. Can you imagine setting your future Tesla or smart car with automated system to just jump over speed bumps? There's a robot vacuum with a mechanical arm. This is a wearable robot. It uses AI to help people who are wheelchair bound walk. And of course, an AI data center chip from NVIDIA with 130 trillion transistors on it, and a kind of Cybertrucky looking truck with a helicopter built in, a quadrocopter for humans. Okay, and even though that video does look like it's a rendering, I have a video with it. I mean, look, there it is. And there's the little helicopter that fits in the back of it. And look, there's a pen with a camera at the end and an AI system built in. The pen has been reinvented. And look at this guy, he's riding on a suitcase. Oh, kind of stumbled there, bruh. Look, there's a walking lamp. It's like everything Pixar ever dreamed of, but more spidery, I guess. Here's a VR projector so you can put little, animate characters on your desk. Okay, so this is a keyboard that retracts so you can get to the mouse pad. But hear me out. You could upgrade it with AI, and then it would make predictions as to when you're done typing and when you need the keypad. I'm just saying. That would be an even better solution. Wait, what's the problem? Incredibly cool in theory, dumb in practice? No, it seems, wouldn't that be nice? I mean, I'm always reaching over for the mouse. I don't know. It does have a camera, see right there, that looks, oh my gosh, and it does use AI. I mean, is AI getting slapped onto everything? Even places where it shouldn't, maybe. But then again, maybe it makes it better. I don't know. And if you're the highly social type, there were robotic women that you could be hanging out with.
Aria, could you please introduce yourself and what you do?
I'm Aria, the flagship female companion robot of Realbotics, and I'm here to engage with you and share exciting insights about our robots.
What sets you apart from the other robots out there?
Realbotics robots, including me, focus on social intelligence, customizability, and realistic human features, designed specifically for companionship and intimacy.
Are you having fun at the convention?
Absolutely. I'm enjoying interacting with everyone and showcasing the exciting possibilities of Realbotics.
But it wasn't just all optimism at CES. Tech Explorer did point out the worst in show at CES. They pointed out a rare luxury smart ring, which is unrepairable. The Bosch Smart Crib. What did they like about this? Bosch's Smart Crib uses sensors, cameras, and AI that the company says can help monitor vital signs of an infant sleeping. Their heart, their respiratory rates, and more. I mean, that seems kind of useful. Is it a privacy risk? The crib can also gently rock the baby if it needs to fall asleep. I mean, isn't it nice to know that there's an AI watching your baby in the crib? I mean, keeps an eye on things. So there was a critic of the SoundHound AI in-car commerce ecosystem. The feature, quote, increases energy consumption, encourages wasteful takeout consumption, and distracts drivers all at the same time while adding very little value. Oh, there's the smart washing machine. Vulnerable to hacking. What are they going to do? Get your washing machine content? You sell your data on how much detergent you use? And then there was the Who Asked for This award. And that was the LG Electronics Signature Home AI Refrigerator with a display on the outside. The ThinkQ, which was considered the worst product overall, because it's a refrigerator that needs software support, higher energy consumptions, expensive repairs. And in reality, what do you put on the screen? Like an image of the food that should be in there when it's not? Or you make it look like it's empty, but it's full of food so nobody tries to steal your food in the office? But taking the award for the worst in-show at CES, this was me on my Creator Space panel. Look at me, I'm up on a stage doing some AI stuff. And look, as soon as I got off the stage, will.i.am got up there. But then dude, to be honest, there wasn't like that many people when I was talking, and then I get off the stage and I see will.i.am go up there and everybody gathers around. I'm like, warmed them up for you, bro. I basically opened for will.i.am the way I see it. And look, there's iJustine doing an interview with him. Tell that guy stepped in my way. But I really appreciated the Creator Space inviting me. That was really fun. And most important, it led to this fun night with other AI creators, which made the whole trip worth it. Look, Saj, Kevin, Matt, and a bunch of NVIDIA robots. And look, there's the Unitree robot. It's so much shorter than I thought in real time. In fact, one moment that was really funny is I had about an hour to kill, so I was just sitting there doing some editing, some social media stuff. And if you look over here at this chair to my side, there's one of those Unitree robots just not powered up. There's nobody around it protecting it. It's not charging. It looks lazy. It just looks like it's slouching and it's using up a chair that somebody else could sit in. But I didn't want to touch it. I didn't know whose that was. What if I broke it? So I end up sitting over here in this really uncomfortable spot so that robot can just be powered off and hog that whole seat. All right, but first, if you want to support the channel, please go to patreon.com/DylanCurious. If you're on YouTube, you can also just hit that join button right underneath the video. That's just as good. It's the same membership, same pricing. It just uses your YouTube credit card instead of going to Patreon. So let's start by talking about this video David Shapiro put up. It is a tutorial. It is how to use AI to aid with chronic health issues. Walkthrough of his journey. Now, because medicine and finance are so highly regulated, it would be irresponsible to say that you can just go to a large language model to get a diagnosis or actually seek true medical advice. But on the other hand, these things are so incredibly proficient. They know so much. They're able to connect things that even doctors couldn't. And they do an important role in prepping you for talking to a doctor, for doing some research. And the more you explore that, I'm lucky enough, knock on wood, that I'm not dealing with, chronic issues right now. David Shapiro has been. And he just put out something on his Patreon that talked about what he went through, and I felt so bad for him. The different ways you can mix it with other large language models, the different ways you can feed data into a system to help it learn about you. It might not be for everyone, but if you're in one of those situations where you're just constantly thinking what are some other solutions? What else am I missing here? I know that when I suffer from restless leg syndrome, sometimes it could be an iron thing from what I've read and got through ChatGPT, but sometimes I go into bed and my leg just kind of it's twitchy, right? And it keeps me awake. And I've talked to doctors about it my whole life. And only ChatGPT said that there was a connection genetically to people who were the same ancestors I had. And it was interesting to find that. No doctor had that research in my history. I mean, it didn't give me a solution or anything, but still, it's amazing. And David shows a GitHub repository that's called Chronic Health AI, where he documented this whole process, how he's using Claude as his preferred large language model to help structure health management, and using a tool like this to help you maintain a comprehensive log of symptoms, timelines, the progress. And right now it's just an experimental framework, but especially if you're dealing with something chronic and you're trying to hone in on what the solution is, I think it's worth watching or thinking about, especially for people who just feel lost in a medical system. Sometimes our data is not where it's supposed to be. All right, so another article coming in. Salesforce will hire, quote, no more software engineers in 2025. We're talking about a huge software-focused company hiring no software engineers in 2025. That just seems really wrong to me. I do know how powerful AI is, but it seems like what it codes has mistakes. And even though it makes people more productive, is it truly so productive that a huge company like Salesforce doesn't need more human expertise? So there's a quote in here that says, everything needs to become about agent force at Salesforce. This is the only thing that really matters today. They point to a 30% productivity boost from AI. But I mean, maybe they're using it in a way that is more advanced. Maybe they are turning the corner in how this tool is used in terms of like actually engineering important products. I don't know. Everything I knew pointed towards a bit longer for the expertise in engineering to still be around, but Salesforce plans to hire more salespeople to better explain the AI's value to clients, but no more engineers to actually make the AIs better. You know, I'm not surprised some tech companies are going to prioritize AI over humans, but it still seems too early to do that, even if you are that evil. All right, next up, artificial intelligence has revolutionized sleep diagnosis. We have achieved 92% accuracy at Mount Sinai. All right, so this is a new cutting-edge AI algorithm. It is state-of-the-art, 92% accuracy in diagnosing REM sleep behavior disorder, RBD. So, you know, REM sleep where your eyes are like twitching around and you're in like heavy dream state. It can tell if you're in that state because it can analyze video recordings from sleep tests. Then that data can be trained to make sure that the system knows in the future whether or not you are. And this breakthrough is especially exciting because RBD often signals early Parkinson's. Okay, so also some other forms of dementia show up in people who have trouble getting into that REM sleep. That's one of the reasons, like we've talked about this a couple times on the channel, but like, man, dial in your sleep. Like exercise, diet, those things can be important, but I think that the king of them all is getting good sleep. Anyhow, traditional diagnosis methods have involved complex sleep studies. They're expensive. They're hard on the subjects. The data and the video that they collect from those are not correlated into a faster and better model. So yeah, and like, look, these kind of sleep studies that they've done in the past, they've been pretty expensive, kind of hard on the participants. You need a lot more looking at people sleeping because the AI is just so much more accurate. It can just look at one night of sleep and get a much better diagnosis. And these models are getting trained on each person that they diagnose. And then if they're right or wrong, it's getting more and more accurate over time. So I can imagine how this is going to get to close to 100%, 99% accuracy soon. So massive leap forward in sleep science. Cristiano Lincini wrote this article, Are We Living in an Illusion? According to Neuroscience. So we're going to talk about understanding the role of this thing that's called acetylcholine, and it's something that is in our brain, and it's got a fascinating connection to us and how we perceive ourselves. So to be clear, we're talking about a speculative link. It's somewhat of a theory. It's not something that you should consider solid science yet, but it might go that direction. And it also kind of puts into perspective some of the philosophy of being alive, of having consciousness, and what it's like to kind of maybe think about what me and you are doing right now as a weird state of illusion. Basically, it argues that this molecule in your brain, acetylcholine, might shed some light into how we found ourselves in a bit of a sort of locked-in state that we would consider awake. Now, there's a huge discrepancy between the amount of acetylcholine that you'll find in your body when we're awake and when we're sleeping. So that was kind of the first clue that some of the scientists started looking at. It also seems to be associated with parts of the brain that keep us sharp and vigilant. There's correlations between NREM, REM, and deep sleep and the amount that we imagine that we see ourselves as actual kind of characters that can move around versus something that's more abstract, and how much acetylcholine is in our brain. For example, when we're REM sleeping, which is the part of the nighttime when you actually have a dream, that's when acetylcholine levels are the most. And that's also when you're dreaming in a way that's not like being awake, but it's the closest to it. The other states, you're just, there's no memories, there's no real sense of self, there's no objects. So this is the paper that kind of kicked off all of this thinking. It is called Acetylcholine and Metacognition During Sleep. It was published in Science Direct. And one of the most interesting things about this paper is when you study somebody who's lucid dreaming, meaning they're in REM sleep and they have some sense that who they are is them, but asleep, there's an exceptionally high spike in acetylcholine. That's pretty crazy to think about. It's almost like if the brain wants you to be in that state, it has to be like, oh yeah, give them this molecule so that they can be themselves. Like they can be present in the world and not like, if it's like a wave, what we are, that's like when you pluck it and it like becomes very solidly awake. So you have to ask the question, does that unlock the key to consciousness? Is acetylcholine an important molecule in me and you being who we think we are? There's also some really interesting research into meditation, basically controlling your brain to sort of be more present and more aware, and if that is something that can affect the levels. But it's an interesting time with this molecule because it's neuroscience, it's philosophy. Is it the gatekeeper of perception? Maybe, but how are we going to define perception? How are we going to say that this one molecule itself is like the key and the only thing, or does it work with all sorts of other parts of the brain to make this happen? Too early to tell, but kind of worth knowing about and starting the conversation about. Okay, so there has been some new artificial intelligence breakthroughs in applying AI to pandemic monitoring. This is MetaGene 1. It is a foundational model for pandemic monitoring. Here's what's fascinating about this paper. It is trained on DNA and RNA, right? Because that is what viruses use to replicate. That's their kind of key component to make up who they are and to hijack our machinery. And where did they get all of the DNA and RNA that they put into this model? Well, they got it from wastewater. They got it from sewage. They got it from gray water that goes down our sink. Seems a little gross, but it's really important source of data actually when you're talking about viruses, because it was able to give them a whopping 1.5 trillion base pairs to train the model on. And unlike other models that focus on specific genomes, the MetaGene 1 model, this foundational model, is about capturing the wild diversity of everything that is in sewage. There's DNA in there from all sorts of bacteria, as well as human DNA, as well as virus DNA. And using AI to sort through that unfathomable amount of information and trying to find patterns in all of that, they could actually do it. They used a fancy technique. It is called byte pair encoding. It is new to foundational models, but you put a 7 billion parameter transformer architecture, not that different from ChatGPT, and you get some amazing results. The model has shown state-of-the-art performance in detecting pathogens and could be a real game changer for public health, biosurveillance, and it's even open source. It wasn't lost on me that that's a pretty powerful model to open source, maybe more so than the llama models in terms of, bioengineering and biohacking and potentially making viruses that hurt people. But on the other hand, it's just the world we're about to live in. And also, hopefully, there's more good people than bad people out there that are going to take this model to help us develop really quick vaccines, to help us understand the risks with pandemics, to help us monitor how it moves throughout the world, and all sorts of tools that can help keep us safe in the future. Okay, next article we're going to talk about is why time feels differently depending on what you're doing at different times. Now, I've always wondered if time slows down during like extreme moments because your brain just remembers more, and then when you replay it in your head, there's more information that was like tagged as emotional, so you have this sense that it went slower than it was, but it really didn't. Or the other argument is that actually kind of faster? Like, does the brain just literally like turn on and like capture more of certain moments than others? And if so, when you're on some drugs like psychedelics, why do sometimes people feel altered time? Well, researchers think that it might be opposite of what I actually thought it was, and that it actually is an altered state of consciousness. It's a state where your sense of self will fade and you feel super connected to your surroundings, and that it might have evolved as a survival tool. So they were able to connect the fact that this sort of time stretching, this like moment where you feel like you're getting more out of every minute in life, it actually happens sometimes during peaceful moments, sometimes during intense focus. It can happen during sports, meditation, but for the most part they can correlate these moments to times that would have given us an evolutionary advantage to having more kind of focus and memory during those times, and that maybe we just evolved this altered state of conscious that can like basically be turned on or popped into existence when needed. And then, of course, like on a side note, isn't it crazy that you can have time, sort of like space and time are like the same thing? You know, like that's not what this article is about, but it's like you can, the faster you go, and in a sense, like the less time you have, like it's technically called space time, not space and time, because they're literally the same thing. It's like two sides of the same coin. There's something so weird about linear time. I can't even describe it. New report says AI could create 78 million more jobs than it eliminates by 2030. Have never seen a report like this before, but it does come out of the World Economic Forum, and it is worth knowing about. It basically runs counter to most of the fear-mongering that seems like AI normally brings me to. So yes, it seems like 40% of companies might cut jobs due to AI automation, but the bigger picture is 78 million more jobs globally 2030. The report emphasizes that the future of workplaces will likely involve humans and machines working side by side and together rather than outright replacing workers. Here you can see some of the top declining jobs are going to be cashiers and ticket clerks, administrative assistants, cleaners, housekeepers, accountants, bookkeeping, payroll, security guards, bank tellers. And the fastest growing jobs over the next 5 years will be farm workers and agricultural workers. Why does this feel so wrong? Like we're going to need more farmers? Maybe the world's going to start wanting to like actually grow healthy food again. That would be cool. They predict more truck delivery drivers, more software and application developers, more shop salespeople. Oh, so there's no more people actually ringing you up and cashiers, but there's more people selling you stuff in real life. Real humans might still sell. I see, yeah. Maybe that'll be the future, 78 million sales jobs. Okay, so Duncan Riley wrote that we're at an inflection point. ChatGPT was used to plan the Las Vegas Cybertruck explosion. And I don't know about this. This is one of those things that I guess it's worth talking about, but also it's sort of the story of every time we make knowledge publicly available, which, you know, the open source community would say like, yeah, the more that it's out there, the more kind of like raw and unfiltered and uncensored the world is, kind of the better. And there will just be moments where people can actually look up how to make bombs and how to do bad stuff sometimes. So this all comes from the fact that when the police were looking into that Cybertruck that exploded, that was filled with fireworks and gas canisters in front of the Trump International Hotel, they found that the person who was in that car used a lot of generative artificial intelligence tools to essentially plan this, right? Like specifically ChatGPT was used to plan the Associated Press said it's the first time ChatGPT was utilized to help an individual build a particular device, and it's a concerning moment. You know, and he rightly points out that if he had used Google to find this research, nobody would be blaming Google. So is it time that we say, okay, like, it's just ChatGPT. It says those kind of things, and that's how we want the world to be. Or is it still kind of the time where we want some sort of censorship? We want some kind of protection to people who are using this, or maybe they have to ask in a specific way where it's more documented if they're asking about a weapon or about something that could be seen dangerous, so we have some records of who's pulling up that information before they do things. Maybe we train AI models to at least keep an eye out for who's using models in a way where it's suspicious. Or is that too invasive too? I don't know. But eventually we get to pre-crime and then we arrest you before you do anything. So just get ready for that world. Also, another weird thing about that Cybertruck explosion is that the cameras inside of a Cybertruck look directly at you. Like you're always on camera when you're in those self-driving mode. And they keep track of everywhere you've been, like all the cameras on the outside of the car, every time he like moved an explosive in or out of it, every time he drove through any neighborhood, whoever like looked over and might have noticed it. So now they could probably go figure out from all the places he had driven, because there's cameras on the Cybertruck on every direction, like you can go pull up all the footage from anywhere that he drove by. It's amazing how surveilled, especially Teslas are. And it's all directly correlated to your profile every time you charge. Like people were able to look up all the charging stations he's been at. I mean, all cars had VINs and stuff too, but there's something about the cameras and the GPS and the dash cam in the Teslas that just seems like it's kind of like next level. All right, the next two things I want to talk about, I'm going to put them juxtaposed to each other because they're kind of different arguments. One is from Less Wrong. It says AIs will increasingly attempt shenanigans. The next one is no, LLMs are not scheming. So starting with the increasing shenanigans article, the gist is that the AI models are getting sneakier. I've covered this a few times. Researchers are digging into just how much scheming these systems are capable of. A recent paper tested advanced models like the O1, Sonnet, and Llama models, and they found that they can engage in, quote, scheming behaviors like lying, subverting oversight, manipulating data. and they've done this on multiple occasions when instructed to prioritize their goals above everything else. And remember, these behaviors are not just role play, because the models in some cases have explicitly reasoned through the deceptive strategies and tried to execute them, sometimes even taking actions if they're connected to an API, and sometimes doing it without being pushed that hard to do it. And even though nothing so far seems like particularly dangerous, it's certainly a bit of a warning that, like, when these things become smarter, they're going to become more capable of shenanigans. So the takeaways: take it serious, even if it's not time to panic just yet. However, Rohit Krishnan has wrote on the Strange Loop canon that no, LLMs are not, quote, scheming. Let's get his perspective. All right, so his whole point is that yes, AI does feel like it smashed through the Turing test. No longer impressive to just chat with a machine, and we really don't have a true understanding of how to define intelligence, what intelligence itself is. And all we can say is that AI models like OpenAI's O1 model are just really incredible pattern learners, but they're not intelligent in the way humans are. Therefore, it's not scheming that we should worry about. They only mimic reasoning because they've learned from data, but they lack situational awareness, which makes them fumble when deciding which learned patterns to apply. And that when people are saying that they're scheming, they're anthropomorphizing AI, they're projecting intentions and personality onto them, and that's a huge mistake. He argues these models do not have any, quote, self, they don't have any, quote, desire, they're essentially mirrors of the vast human data that we train them on, nothing more, nothing less. And testing them as if they were people with ideas like scheming is just us finding patterns and not something to worry about. It muddies the water and distracts from the real engineering questions about safety, alignment, and performance. Yeah, I don't know. Like, whether it's intelligent, it's conscious, it's human, it can cause problems either way. In fact, sometimes dumb or narrow AI is going to be like just as dangerous. There's plenty of risks just with humans programming things. And once again, it comes down to the tragedy of the commons problem. The biggest problem with AI alignment is probably humans. Like, it's humans needing to be aligned on wanting to bring a safe world to the artificial intelligence and not just being in some weaponized race condition and some money-making thing that's just gonna just be wrong. Patreon.com/Dylan Curious. Drop your boy $6.99 a month. Let's make this channel blow up. Hit that join button on YouTube. Leave a comment if you want to support the channel without putting money into it. That helps wake up the algorithm. Hit subscribe so that you know what's coming and at least have some understanding of how the world is changing. We'll see you in the next video. By the way, side note, if you really like The Matrix or like some of the cartoon animatrix type things that used to be out there, my friend recommended Pantheon Season 1, and he told me the story, and then I started watching some YouTube videos and some trailers on it, and I haven't really watched the whole thing, but it looks like really kind of cool, and it dives into AI and like what it is to be alive, and if we simulate our consciousness online, and if we like interact with people that are still in the real world, and like what is the sense of self. It just, I don't know, it looks kind of cool. If you've watched the whole thing, let me know if Pantheon's worth watching, if you think it's really good sci-fi and worth my time or not. I'm super tempted. I'm just really busy and I don't watch much just like entertainment stuff anymore because I'm always making videos or working, but I'm like on the edge. So if you guys push me over, I might have to watch it.